and welcome back on FestiVITA for our year abroad series where we discover where students have been on their year abroad. For this new episode, we are here to discover about two countries this time. A student that have been in two countries. It's quite difficult for me personally. I've never really understood which continent you can really put them on. Some people say it's Europe, some people say it's Asia, but I think our guest Joe will be able to tell us all about it. Hello, Joe. How are you today?
Oh, good evening, Matthias. I'm very well. I'm very well, thank you. And how are you, of course?
I'm doing all good, all good. Well, today, so of course, you, as you probably, all everyone can hear it, Joe is online with us because he is still in Georgia. As in fact, you've done this year, and it's still not finished, your year abroad both in Kazakhstan and in Georgia, right?
Yeah, that's quite right. So I spent half a year in Kazakhstan, half a year in Georgia. I decided to come out a month later. I know lots of people, they arrived in Georgia in about January time and finished up in May. I finished up in Kazakhstan on the 21st of December just because I don't know, I went to the south of the country to do a bit of skiing in Almaty, very, very cool city. So I was like, okay, I definitely need a breather from Kazakhstan before Georgia. And yeah, I've only got a week left as it stands now. So I'm already out playing the last few beers with some mates I made out here. It's very, very sad, but yeah, love Georgia.
I'm glad to see that you've enjoyed your year abroad. I know how the ending of such a good experience is always quite difficult, but you're gonna tell us all about today. How was your year and how much you've loved it? Maybe some challenges, this kind of stuff. My first question is, what made you choose Kazakhstan and Georgia? Because that's something we forgot to mention. You study German at the University of
Uh,
Exeter, and what made you choose Kazakhstan and Georgia? Because they're not two countries that speak German, right? Or do you also study another language?
yeah, so I study German and Russian. To make a long story short, the university says, Joe, you speak absolutely awful Russian. You're German, passable. So if you can, yeah, try and spend as much time as you can in a Russian-speaking country. And
That's
then
so nice from the
I know,
uni
like
to
when
say
you,
that.
I know it's unfortunate the label Russian-speaking country because obviously Georgia, they've been independent from the Soviet Union for a long time. But the options were Estonia, Latvia, Georgia, and Kazakhstan. I thought, when am I ever going to get the opportunity to go to Kazakhstan and Georgia? Because you can go to Estonia, Latvia very easily, like a £30 Ryanair flight or something. And yeah, I mean, granted, like you probably won't be able to speak Russian very well in all the countries. Like in Kazakhstan, you can speak a great deal, especially go to the south in Almaty, where it's predominantly more Russian. Astana, where I was studying, is again, yeah, lots of Russians. Uh, but yeah, I think generally you can speak a lot of Russian here. It's which is something I was really quite surprised, especially in the case of Georgia, which obviously has been occupied by Russia since about 2008 in certain regions. But yeah, obviously it's amazing.
Well, talking about Russia, before we going into the deep of your personal year abroad, obviously we know the actual contest going on between Russia and Ukraine, and you mentioned how Georgia is occupied by Russia since some parts of the country are occupied since 2008. We're not here obviously to talk about politics or anything, but how much of the Russian influence can you feel in the city, and is the current situation right now between Russia and Ukraine, is it something that can impact as well, whether Kazakhstan or Georgia as well, or you don't really feel at all? You don't even talk about it, I guess.
I think especially in Kazakhstan, there's an element of not really talking about it, just because a lot of the people were like native Kazakhs. A lot of them had lived in a lot of the even native Russians had lived in Kazakhstan since before the fall of the Soviet Union, so it would have very little to do with Russia in the first place. It's only since writing to Tbilisi, like the war becomes a bit more of a theme. But I mean, there's a bar like just up the road from where I live called Plokha Bar, which is just Russian for bad bar. And it's a lovely place. Like you can only fit about 10, 20 people in there. Everyone's just speaking Russian, and you got Belarusians, Russians, Ukrainian or Belarusians even, Ukrainians, Russians, all drinking together, all talking. And I don't know, like, politics is very, very rarely a theme there. Um, you know, I I think maybe like you do get some like personal stories of how like people have left Russia and come to Tbilisi, but um, But I think because Tbilisi has become like a big spot for lots of Russian expats, like it's perfect for me because I get to have a lot of practice. But it's also really interesting, like hearing the stories of different people, and but also like how everyone. I think it's a general fact that everyone in Tbilisi is very, very opposed to the war, which obviously quite reassuring, and yeah, just really nice fact.
Well, nice. Well, as you mentioned, Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia. Well, I'm glad that in a way, politics is not really mentioned a lot, and you can just enjoy your time during whilst you're abroad. Well, you know, after this little special moment because of what's going on in Russia right now. Sorry, not in Russia, but in Ukraine because of the conflict, Russia Ukraine. My first question about your year abroad is: we know how the British Council is sometimes very complicated when it comes to go on your year abroad, and is your have your preparations been difficult, and have you had maybe some, I don't know, some some paperwork's problems, or has it been quite difficult to prepare for your abroad, or was it quite smooth? Because we forgot to mention it again as well. You are British, right?
Yes.
So was it quite difficult in terms of paperwork to prepare your year abroad, or was it all right?
Uh, I mean, yeah, in terms of paperwork, I mean, in the case of Georgia, it was probably the easiest thing I had to do because yeah, so Georgia, they have a policy where almost any passport can stay in the country for 365 days a year, providing they just leave the country once to, kind of set back the clock and say, oh, yeah, left the country, now you've arrived, another 365 days. And you can do anything with that,
Oh,
like
really?
student, business. Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. And that's kind of why there's, so many Russians here, just because this very, very relaxed policy. So you can like, even you could like look up to Georgia, set up a business, and just chill in the country for a bit. It's
That's
and
so
I've
cool.
seen like so many British expats just stay here as well. Like there's, I don't know, I met a Welsh guy a couple of nights ago. Like he'd been in the country since about 2003. Obviously, occasionally like heading back home, set back the clock. And in the case of Kazakhstan, it's a little bit more complicated. I had to get a student visa for that, and but I've got quite a few visas in the past. I had to get one for working in America. I had to get one for working in Germany. Yeah, and both of those like very, very official processes. But the one in Kazakhstan, it was probably the easiest visa I ever had. I'll tell you, like no word of a lie. When I got to the embassy in London, the door was just left wide open, like no security or anything. Because like with the American embassy, I had to like empty my bag, keep random bits in the locker. I had to throw away my water. Embassy of Kazakhstan, just walked straight in. Uh, I spoke to the lady on the counter and was like, "Oh, I've got an appointment in 15 minutes. Am I in the right place? Oh, yeah, yeah, I can talk to you now." And just handed over my I mean, I say document, so it's only like a application form, a passport photo, and a receipt for the cost of the visa online. I think it was 160 quid for Kazakhstan to have a multiple entry visa, stay there for half a year.
Wow. Okay. Well,
But
that's good to know. That means Kazakhstan. So you're saying today that Kazakhstan and Georgia are pretty easy country then to go in terms of like paperwork, or I don't know, visas, this kind of stuff. Where if you want to do your year abroad.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think I did. I think just in terms of the program, I did need a bit of advice on. Oh, I think it's the name of the company I put down I was studying at. So it wasn't directly with the university that I was studying in Astana. It was like a language school within the university. And they were based in another place called Aksau in the west of the country rather than Astana. So when I was like filling in a lot of this information, I had to go back to my program director and say, "Oh, I'm a little bit worried if I've filled out everything wrong." And it's funnily enough, this program director, he teaches English to Russian students. And he put me in touch with one of his students who lives in Shimbalaks, like a mountain range just outside of the old Soviet capital, Almaty. And I remember like this guy was saying about he was saying about our program director, how teaches them English. I don't know, because apparently this man's like a Vietnam veteran, who'd like been a Russian interpreter during the Vietnam War. Uh, but one of the things he mentioned was, "Oh my God, I've got so many English students who are writing to me, always saying I don't know what to fill in, what to write down." I'm like, "Yep, yep." Most of those emails were probably all mine, saying, "What do I put for this box? What do I put for that box?" It's all in a jokey way, I'm sure.
Wow.
uh, but yeah, I got the visa all sorted. It was very, very easy in hindsight. I think it was just like filling out some of the company details, but that's just me being silly, really.
Well, you were mentioning how you went into a univ language class, language school, right?
Yeah, so yeah, but I was saying in our conversation earlier, it was I think because so the Russian students, they're not based like an actual university. They're in a language school within a university sort of thing. So basically, Exeter, they don't recognize the qualifications we get from this language school. I mean, I think I've got mine with me. It literally just says certificate of achievement. You've studied Russian here for, well, God knows how many days, whatever it was. Um, yeah, so obviously Exeter doesn't really recognise that. So they put us on a work abroad module for some reason, and that's all fine and dandy. I've just got to do some courseworky bits, write a couple essays in the Russian language, which is a arduous process, just a very, very horribly complicated language, as you may know. Um, but then like there would be some parts of the coursework where you'd have questions like, oh, and what's your relationship with your employer? How are you fitting in to the work environment? I'm like, well, yeah, I'm clearly not in a work environment, but yeah, I think that's my one complaint about it all, really. Just there's not necessarily something specific for the Russian students because I'm not working abroad, so I didn't really know what I was writing about. I didn't really know what I was writing about half the time. So I was just writing about a upcoming internship and how I've been getting on with that as I don't know something work related and how my employability skills have improved. But uh, yeah, I think that's my only one struggle with a year abroad. You just have to be very good at writing a load of waffle in terms of your employability skills if you study Russian.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I see. So if I understand correctly, so you studied Russian whilst you were in Kazakhstan for the first 6 months, and then what did you do in Georgia? Was it studying as well, or did you work?
Georgia, it's still studying Russian. I think I probably could have worked, but I would have to understand the Georgian language to some degree, which I don't think I could really master.
Is it very
I don't know if you
different
ever seen.
from Russian?
Oh my God, yeah, yeah. I don't know. So I think it's all the languages in the Caucasus apart from Azerbaijan. So Armenian, maybe Abkhazian, maybe not Ossetian. Uh, I mean, but Georgia is a very, very isolated language. It's got absolutely no influence from any other language apart from, some words being borrowed from Russia. Um, and like even when you look at the script, it's really, really quite an amazing script. Like it's all, I'd say it looks very, very similar to Thai in terms of how it's written, which I don't know, you just wouldn't really expect for a language in that kind of area. Like I would have thought it'd be like a heavy influence from Russian, and I thought Kazakh as well would be, again, a very heavy influence from Russia, but I know it just really surprised me in that kind of area how really different some of these languages and cultures are. It's absolutely amazing.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, that's really good to know. I didn't know that. So for me personally, I didn't, as I said at the beginning, I didn't really know how where to really locate Georgia and Kazakhstan. I mean, sorry, I know how to locate
Mm.
them on the map, but everyone seems to be quite confused sometimes whether they're in Europe or in Asia. So you're telling me today it's more of an Asian culture, I would say, rather than the European one. Like between the two, it's more towards the Asian one, right?
Yeah, so in certainly in the case of Kazakhstan, that we just consider that as a Central Asia. To be fair, when I arrived in Georgia, I actually didn't know, and it was for a long time I really didn't know where Georgia was. But I think it's generally reckoned that so there are two mountain ranges that Georgia's like kind of wedged between, if you will. You got the Southern Caucasus and then the Northern Caucasus. The Northern Caucasus, that's like the border between, it's de facto the border between like Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Russia. So yeah, north of that you just got Russia. That's still like European Russia. But then you go south of the Southern Caucasus, and then that's when you get to the border of Turkey and Iran. So that's when we start thinking, what do you call it? That's Asia. But I think Asia Minor is the correct word. So I think like, but yeah, a good part of Georgia is still north of the Southern Caucasus. So like, Georgia's kind of in Europe, it's kind of in Asia. Um, but then again, they're like, yeah, I think just saying Europe and Asia, it's yeah, you can't really put a label on it because Georgia does feel very, very European. And so does and so does Armenia. I went to Armenia for a little holiday some a couple months ago. And the whole of Armenia is in Asia, but yeah, but then again, because it had that Soviet influence, uh, obviously from Russia, it, European Russia, it does, the whole place does feel culturally European, I'd say.
Okay, okay. I see, I see. Well, very interesting. Well, that's, that's what I love about here, FestiVITA, is that although I've had, the humongous chance of traveling in a lot of countries, I still just discover about it every day and about new country, which does make me want to travel even more on these new countries, which I'm sure I'll be able one day. And it looks really fantastic to discover about Kazakhstan and Georgia. My next question, Joe, was what were your first impression upon arrival? Whether, when you arrived in Kazakhstan or Georgia, like, did you expect some stuff or did you, maybe thought some stuff about the two countries that then when you arrived, you were maybe surprised or a bit shocked about some stuff? Yeah, like maybe, I guess some cliche maybe that you had about the countries. I thought, oh, I might, might need to be careful about this kind of stuff. Or was it pretty chill? People were quite welcoming.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I tell you what, this is going to sound incredibly silly, but I did not do an awful lot of reading for Kazakhstan, which I probably should have done. I think it's because I was anticipating working in Germany the summer before, so I was like spending a lot of time like researching where I was going to be staying in Germany, and then all of a sudden I didn't get this job in Germany because my visa arrived late, which I was a bit disappointed at. So I got a job in Cornwall, and I was pretty much working down there until what was it? Literally like 2 days before I was due to fly to Astana. So I was like, oh crap, like,
I should
I'm
probably
going to
learn where I'm
Kazakhstan
going.
now. I don't know. Yeah, so I had like a quick look on Google Maps. Right, there's the university. There's my house. I don't know. Biterek, big spiky metal ball that was drawn by the president. That's like the main attraction and the biggest thing in Kazakhstan. Right, those are three landmarks. And like even on the plane, I was a little bit scared because what was it like? I don't know if you know, but so Astana, the capital city of Kazakhstan where I was staying, it's changed names about 5 times in its history. So it started off life as
With
Akmola, then it became Akmolinsk, then Stalingrad, then Akmola again, then Astana, then Nur Sultan after the first president, Nur Sultan Nazarbayev. Then after some protests in 2022, it became Astana. And my plane said like Astana slash Almaty. And I was like, hang on, I'm quite certain those are two different places. I know Astana's changed names.
I remember
I'm
we
quite
had
certain.
Anwar, the president of the Kazakhstan Society this year. He came on the show and he was telling us how the names have changed quite a lot for the city, and apparently, well, you are the perfect case, I guess. The tourists sometimes can get quite confused.
No, absolutely. But no, I was like, honestly, I tell you, I stood in Frankfurt Airport and my plane said Almaty slash Astana. And I'm like, right, I know for a fact those are two different places. So which one am I going to? It turned out the plane would just drop people off in Astana and then carry on to Almaty in the south. So that was fine. But I tell you what, when I arrived, like Astana is just such a strange city. I'll be perfectly honest. Um, I know because I kind of expected, I think I knew it was like a brand new city because I know there was once a Soviet town, Akmola, Stalingrad, that was all like built up around the 1950s. And then Nursultan Nazarbayev, he built his brand new sort of dream city right next to it. And I remember like, I was staying with like a host family. I say a host family, it's just like a 60-year-old woman. And she like, you know, she walked me over to the university, bless her. Like we both got the bus together. Yeah, this is the thing with my first impressions. I will never forget how weird like the skyline was because we're walking across this bridge, yeah, and everything's like very massive, feels very kind of artificial. Like the lanes like always 8 lanes wide, and like looking at the skyline, there was honestly, I tell you, like some great big Chinese pagoda building. Like you can sort of see like had a sort of Chinese style roof, had the main government buildings, which is like a great big marble kind of structure with kind of like gold tinted windows. Yeah, I honestly, I say it like the skyline in Astana. It was just so weird and so shocking. I just never imagined it to look like that. It was very odd. And then of
Wow.
course I found out the weather dropped down to -40 during the winter, which I kind of guessed it would be cold, but I didn't know it'd be that cold. Um,
-40.
yeah, man, honestly, it's horrible.
Wow.
I have memories like walking across the bridge during December, and I'd have like a scarf on, and I'd be like breathing, and obviously it compensates my glasses, but my glasses would just instantly freeze.
What
So
the hell? Wow. Okay. Yeah, I knew it was that like quite cold, but I didn't know that much. Wow.
the
Okay.
stupidest thing was like I mean like a lot of these places are kind of built for the cold, so every like building or every like public building has a big cloakroom, and you always got some like well excuse me some 60, 70-year-old women working there. And every time I hand them my coat, they like have a quick feel of it because it's only like a windbreaker, and I was wearing like maybe 10 layers of jumpers underneath. Like they feel this windbreaker, and be like, "Whoa, are you not cold?" Like every time I just have this like awkward small talk, these lovely babushkas. It was so funny. Um,
Love
and then
it.
in the case of Tbilisi, bless it was my birthday maybe not long after I arrived. So I remember like I unpacked everything and I found like a load of like winter gloves, hats, that kind of stuff, thermals. And I called my mum when it was my birthday, and I was like, oh, thank you very much, happy birthday, all that. I'm sorry, but why are there gloves and stuff in my bag? Oh, Joe, it's really cold in Tbilisi, didn't you say? And I was like, no, it's really cold in Kazakhstan. I said it's going to be really warm in Tbilisi. We're right next to Turkey. Like
Love
it's, I'd say it was 40 degrees today. I've had absolutely no use for any of my winter gear here. Like
it.
I think I wore like a woolly hat and some gloves, at least one day. But then I was flying back to Kazakhstan from Georgia just to see some mates. It was
I
that's the only
love
time I
it.
wore them. Um,
Love it.
I mean,
Nice.
bless her for doing that. Absolutely love my mum.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah, yeah. I just
Well,
don't know what I'm gonna do with all this gloves now.
love it. Well, you talked about it, your arrival in both of the countries, and your first impression that, you were having was, arriving both in Kazakhstan and in Georgia. Talking about this first impression is what cultural difference did you notice? Whether it can be on the lifestyle or maybe on the social norms or maybe food. Did you feel anything that, maybe you didn't know about? Or maybe you feel like, sometimes some countries are very, specific about, rules that we have to, be careful about. So was there any kind of this stuff, whether in Kazakhstan or even in Georgia?
Well, being a man who loves a cheeky pint, one thing I'd never really noticed around like the beer culture, I think it's kind of like a standard across the post-Soviet realm. So like Kazakhstan, I think actually no, to be fair, less so in Georgia. I think it's definitely more the case in Kazakhstan this happened because I think there are some native Russians who do live there still. And I think it's still like a very much Kazakh enjoyed thing, but dried fish and beer, I never thought would be a thing. Like I remember being this like this little cafe just outside this university, um, and there's some I don't know, great big like very typical proper Kazakh men like sitting next to us on the adjoining table. Uh, I don't know. I think I just went for like some beer and some chips, which is like a kind of standard English pub thing to do. And like
Nice.
everyone and this is the other thing. Like everyone in Astana was just so lovely. Like the Kazakhs are just amazing hosts. So this guy like came over and he just plopped like a whole dried fish on the table, and he's like, "Oh, it's for your beer, of course.
Very
You
nice.
are our guest. You can have my fish. I'm not going to eat it all." Um,
Love it. Well,
I
they sound very friendly.
exactly. I didn't really know how to eat it, so I mean, I've come to be better at eating dried fish, and I know how to completely take apart a fish. I think yeah, but the nicest thing is, I used to. I tell you what, this is absolutely perfect for the cold weather. There's a great big public bathhouse in Astana. You could go there for like £5 for 3 hours. Yeah, you get £1 pints there. You can get fish to go along with your beer, and I think I honestly, yeah, I mean, I don't look very Kazakh at all. So me and my four or five other English mates were all like sat in the sauna, and yeah, we're still out like sore thumbs. And almost everyone, like every time we go in, they'd be like, "Oh, where are you from? England. Oh, very cool. Manchester United or some other football club they might have seen before. Bless them." I think the strangest we have one. I remember seeing like one guy in the bathhouse, like he clearly saw we're English. He's like, he just started belting out these Manchester United songs, like word for word, almost perfectly. I don't really watch football, but one of my other friends verifies that he did, and it just really caught us off guard. But yeah, he like invited us to some beer. He bought us quite a few rounds, and then he invited us to I think there was a match between Manchester United and I don't know someone else. But he said the Astana fan club of Manchester United is all going to be there. So I don't know. We left the bathhouse. We all got changed, rocked up to this random bar, and it was just filled with like these Kazakhs, just all in like Manchester United, watching BBC Sport or something. It's just absolutely insane, I tell you.
Love it, love it, love it. And what about in Georgia? Did you feel any cultural difference that maybe something very specific to the country that you thought was quite interesting to discover?
Uh, in terms of Georgia, I think it's a lot more Western than Kazakhstan. I mean, and yeah, I mean, in the case in the case of Kazakhstan, I was like I was probably the only tourist or the only European person there. Really, it was very strange. But yeah, in the case of Georgia, it's a bit more multicultural. But yeah, in terms of in terms of the culture, I think I kind of knew what was coming because funnily enough, like the cuisine in Kazakhstan, it's all very nice. But when we eventually got a bit of flavor fatigue and we wanted to try something else, because there are lots of Kazakh restaurants in Kazakhstan, uh, go to like a Georgian restaurant. So I knew very well what to expect from a Georgian restaurant, in terms of Georgian cuisine. And to be fair, it like, massively slept on Georgian cuisine. Uh, so I kind of like knew what was in stock, and I was very happy with that. Obviously, Georgian wine, very big thing out here. Absolutely loved it. Um, but yeah, in terms of any other real major cultural differences, it was yeah, I don't know. It's I'd say yeah, I didn't really expect anything too different from I don't know. I don't know. I probably wasn't expecting as much.
No, fair enough, fair enough. No, no, don't worry, don't worry. Well, when we go on a year abroad, we talked about the cultural difference now, and when you come, to a new country, you discover the actual country, you discover the new culture, and the most important, obviously, and you didn't mention it already, sometimes how to make friends. How was the best way for you to, make friends, meet people? Was there any maybe organization that helped you with that? Or was it maybe through, the school where you're studying?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll be honest. I was very lucky in Kazakhstan that I had a really sort of close knit group. I think like some of these guys I met in Kazakhstan, I think we did like a joint trip to Almaty. It's definitely one of those like kind of make or break trips. Uh, there was one guy, he is a bit of a knob. We just decided to kind of distance ourselves from him. The rest of us, we got like a house on fire. So I think like, seeing if there's anyone who can like travel on your course, you can always like just propose. I mean, it's a year abroad. Like it's one of those atmospheres being like, oh, hey, does anyone want to go across the country on a small minivan for £3? Give it a go. Why not? See what happens. Um,
That's so
then like
good.
even if that's not, I mean, it's just so easy to travel in these places. But I think the other option I found in the case of Georgia, like I think I don't know, maybe a lot. I think some of the guys I was with, they already kind of traveled a bit, so they weren't really that keen to just go out and about. So I'd like kind of say things and be like, "Oh no, I've already been there." It's kind of mid-tier, and I'm like, "Oh, all right." But
that's the
I was really,
difficult that's the difficult part of having friends. Sometimes in a group you have different type of people. But
yeah,
look,
exactly.
so you
But I
was
think,
sorry, yeah, go for it.
yeah, I was just going to say, I think obviously because none of my classmates really wants to travel, I was like, "Oh, all right, never mind then." I know I ended up like just hopping around a few bars, seeing which one would kind of fit me. And I remember like going to this place, Plokka Bar, a few times, so bad bar, and oh, the bartender, absolutely lovely man called Eugene. He's from Belarus, but he just knows like an insane amount about like British culture. Uh, I think like maybe I had some cigarettes on me at the time or something, and he said, "Oi, mate, can I bum a fag from you?" rather than the bog standard, "Oh, can I please borrow a cigarette so you might learn an English class?" I was like, I don't know, that really surprised me. He knew so much about English culture, and then I don't know, like he's just a lovely bloke. So I keep going back to that same bar, talking with him and some of these others. Um, And yeah, I found like a really good sort of friendship circle just from this random bar, from like I suppose just a bit of solo mission, a bit of try and fail, like going to different bars in the area, seeing if I can make friends. But yeah, I'd say that's how I kind of did it.
Very nice, very nice. In terms of your, I was going to ask you. So you said had to make friends and traveling outside of kind of the big cities in a way of Kazakhstan and Georgia. In terms of your academic experience, how how difficult was it for you to like get into the academic lifestyle? I would say whether in Kazakhstan or in Georgia, because we know that countries have an educational system very different. Do you have like more hours of class, maybe more homeworks, like, or do you reckon it's maybe more chilled than in England? Like, what are the kind of differences and similarities between England and Kazakhstan and Georgia?
So in the case of Kazakhstan, it was just a language school within a university. It was, I think, a couple of teachers who had some spare time. They'd teach us Russian, so it wasn't too much. The lesson times themselves were a bit longer, so they'd be, I don't know, they'd vary from either an hour and a half to 2 hour long lessons. Uh, so maybe still a bit less, if not maybe kind of on par with my extra timetable back in Kazakhstan. And definitely felt like a bit more of a kind of academic atmosphere. And then again, it was really nice because all the students are super, super friendly. They want to try and practice speaking English with us. Or, I mean, I even met like a few who are studying German, which I've never really kind of anticipated from Kazakhstan. But yeah, fair play. I even got to keep on top of my German a little bit. But in the case of Georgia, it's very, very chill here. So I think so I'm mostly just sort of doing independent work at the moment. Like independently writing vocab, going over grammar, that kind of stuff. Um, as I think our classes are a lot more sort of vocab based. So we have I think this is what's amazing. So it's yeah, so it's only just like a small language school here in Georgia, but our teacher, she's a Russian activist, like a feminist activist who I think I can't remember the exact date she had to leave, but it was long before loads of others had to leave. And I'm sure you've heard the term foreign agent being chucked around when you hear of Russia. She was actually one of the very first people to be designated a foreign agent. Um, and yeah, but she's a really, really inspiring woman. Like so many amazing stories. Um, I mean, for example, we have taught the word for, we taught the verb interrogate. Yeah, and she just casually drops into lesson. Oh, I've been interrogated 5 times when I was in Russia. And but
I
I
imagine
mean, she's super, super chill. Amazing woman. Really good stories.
when you say she was interrogated, was it by the Russian Secret Service? I guess.
Just standard police. They,
Oh, just standard police.
I think
Okay.
it's just, yeah, I think it's just her activity on Facebook. Obviously, because she is part of the Pussy Riot movement, I believe. I'm not entirely sure of, to what extent her involvement was, but I've been told like she's a very, very sort of prominent activist, and I don't know, like hearing some of the stories, do you think like, wow, this is really, really amazing to be caught by her? But yeah, but then again, like it is a lot more of a chill kind of atmosphere. You know, our lessons are a bit more sort of conversational, all built around like increasing vocab. Um, and yeah, and the nicest thing about it, we get to do these little presentations. It's just about like random subjects, that kind of stuff. So I think I was talking about the region of Sanse Javakheti in Georgia, which I don't know, just coming off like some box standard facts. And I did a trip there very recently to Borjomi in the mountains, lovely, lovely region. So ended up, it's just me sort of talking about my holiday snaps, and it definitely like increased my confidence when speaking Russian, like doing these presentations, like especially in Kazakhstan, because they were like proper formal sort of presentations. I remember it was like a finishing kind of thing. We all had to do a presentation each. It had to be about 15 minutes long, and you're sort of talking the entire time in front of a group of like 40 or so people. It's a little bit stressful, but I don't know. I mean, I think I maybe kind of thrive on that kind of stuff, really. Might not be my finest Russian, but
I
but no, I
mean,
love it.
well done from trying already. I think to learn the language because I know it's quite a difficult one. So, no, well done, and I'm sure you did. Honestly, I'm sure you did a great job, and I'm glad to see that this yearboard, whether it was in Kazakhstan or in Georgia, it has helped you to improve your improve your level. My before last question was, what were the biggest challenge you faced during your year abroad? And if you did have any, how did you manage to kind of overcome them? Did you manage, to find any particular easy solutions to overcome these challenges?
I think there were at times some, rather uncomfortable situations. I think the most uncomfortable of which was, I think it's just like social situations, talking in Russian, that kind of thing. I was on a train in Uzbekistan. Me and a friend of mine, we were like desperately trying to find some alcohol because Uzbekistan, they don't sell alcohol on their trains. Very, very sad. And I think we're meant to be on there for a good like 8 hours, I believe. But we bumped into like a group of Russians on like a work party, and I don't know, we got speaking with them for a bit, and it turned out they had a bottle of cognac. Uh, and this is something I never knew. Apparently, the Russians they drink cognac and then chase it up by biting an apple, which is a bit surprising. So after many cognacs, many apples, and yeah, like this is the weirdest thing about it, because it's like a work party. I was talking to this one guy, he was just absolutely plastered. But my other friend was talking to the boss, and I was like kind of overhearing the conversation, and the boss asked, "So, what do you guys think of the war?" And we're like, "Oh, okay," already a bit uncomfortable.
Wow.
And
Like,
then, and the boss was like, "By the way, we're not going to hurt you." And
what?
we're like, "Okay,
What the
this is."
hell?
It's not a great situation because we were outnumbered these guys by like 10 to 2, I suppose. And I know I've had this kind of situation in the past where I think in Tbilisi you can very easily just say, no, I really hate the war. It's a bit stupid because everyone here they've left Russia for a reason, and we're all in agreement. Whereas a country like Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, it's always a bit more ambiguous, and
Yeah.
especially because these guys have come from Moscow as well. So
Yeah, yeah,
we're
no,
like,
I see
oh, I
what you
don't
mean.
know. I suppose the price of everything has gone up. I think we said, and I mean, it's one of those like standard English things, I suppose. Like you never really want to bring up politics or anything when drinking, so you always like try to give a very, very neutral answer. At least that's what I tried to do, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what my friend
No,
did. He said like,
that's for sure. That's for sure. And I think you did bring a good point because just wanted to remind, of course, although these countries, have can have sometimes a culture of drinking, maybe some alcohol, even if it's just to discover. Obviously, be careful about not drinking too much. To all our listeners here on FestiVITA, in case you do
oh,
go
of
to
course,
these
of course,
countries, just in case, but. It's a good thing, obviously, to discover. If it's a cultural stuff, that they want to make you discover whenever you go to Kazakhstan or Georgia or even any other countries around the world. Don't hesitate if you want to go for it, but obviously drink it at a reasonable amount. The last thing I wanted to ask you was, if you had to, if you speak now, let's imagine you're speaking to a student who would go to Kazakhstan and Georgia next year. What's like the biggest advice that you would give them? Maybe related to a challenge that you faced or something, just something in particular. Like, what's the biggest advice that you're like, okay, I really recommend you to do that. And if you do that, you'll have, the best year of your life.
I'd say maybe read into a place, but don't read in too much. Just because, I mean, in the case of Kazakhstan, I had no expectations, and when I got there, I was just absolutely amazed, and I'd 100% go back to that country, as I have since done. I found a cheap little flight there, love that place. But I think like I think yeah, maybe it goes with any place. Like when you come with too many expectations, I mean, yeah, you can be let down sometimes, and it could really sort of get on top of you a bit. Like I don't know, maybe I expected a little bit too much from Tbilisi. So I think like when I first arrived, like I mean, yeah, I think it's standard with any place. Like when you first arrive, yeah, even Kazakhstan too. Like when I first arrived, I was like kind of thinking, oh my god, what the hell am I doing here? And then eventually, you kind of get over it. You settle in. It will feel very, very rough, and you will feel very, very isolated. But eventually, you will settle in. So yeah, don't read into stuff. Don't read into stuff too much because you could be disappointed. And if you do have the impending feeling of, oh my God, what the hell am I doing here? As I felt pretty much the second I left the ball when I last saw you, Matthias, because I was flying out to Georgia literally the day after. Like the whole time I was thinking, oh my God, this is so weird. But I know it eventually goes after some time, and you do feel like I think within like a good 2 weeks or so, I felt perfectly settled.
Well done. Well, I think it's completely fair, to feel stressed before you leave. Especially in a new country that technically you've never been before. And I think honestly, I just want to say on a general note, well done to everyone that does that because I think it's a big achievement, and you should
No, absolutely, it's
you
huge.
personally should be proud of yourself, honestly, for doing that, and a huge well done, and also a huge thank you, honestly, for coming today. It was a real pleasure to have you, discovering about Kazakhstan and Georgia, a lot of facts and a lot of stuff. I really, really enjoyed it. I was like listening to you. I was like, wow, there's really a lot to do and a lot to discover, which I'm sure I'll be able to do one day and discover these two wonderful countries. Thank you so much, Joe, for coming. It was a pleasure and
Well, thank you for inviting me. Good talking to you.
pleasure, and I will see you all very soon.